Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, the liberality to kith and kin, and He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion, and He instructs you that you may receive admonition. And this is in Surah 16, the verse of the B, verse 19. And the issue I'm concerned about and mentioned today is, again, of course, the 22nd anniversary of abortion on demand in South Africa. And since then, about 1.6 million babies have been aborted within our state hospitals with our taxpayers' money. And here Allah Ta'ala tells us, kill not your children in fear of want, in fear of poverty. We shall provide sustenance for them as well as for you. Verily, the killing of them is a great sin. And this is in Surah 17, verse 31. And so South Africa have lost the battle against backstreet abortions, because having access to abortion has become as easy as a pill popping exercise. My dear sisters and brothers, the writing is on the wall. The termination of pregnancy bill is actually failing. It has failed its objective. While the motivation behind this legislation was to minimize backstreet abortions and to reduce the mortality rate of women, it has lost the battle. Abortions can be done either for profits today, as being done by the private sector or backstreet abortionists, or it can be done as it is done by state institutions and a few philanthropists. So taking a life today has become as easy as popping a pill, and has become a fully fledged industry whereby a third reality has emerged in South Africa for which no law makes adequate provision, and that is the 2 or 3 stage abortion as mentioned by Dr. Frank Miller. Now, what is it I would rather say 3-stage abortion. Most South African abortions nowadays are initiated by the drug misoprostol. The drug is available on the black market. Women takes the drug thinking they can have a discreet abortion and actually bring a solution to her dilemma, as she calls it, or she feels it is a dilemma. She avoids going to the state clinic because of privacy concerns, but when complication sets in, ends up in a state hospital to undergo an emergency evacuation. Now, being admitted as an emergency case, she impacts on the rights of mothers who are genuinely in need of maternal care, because victims of botched abortions are clogging up theatre space in state institutions. And yet Dr. Frank Miller further explains, over a 10-day period, 5 mothers not undergoing abortions, but those in labor actually died, because that same period 50 women required theatre time for evacuations, and most of them confirmed that they used the drug misoprostol illegally to induce their abortions. Now, in total, they required 40 liters of blood to resuscitate them, and they took up 50 hours of theatre space, all on the state budget, with the result that the women with complications during labor could not be rushed to theatre, but had to wait until the emergency evacuations were taking place. Now, this is not really an isolated case, says doctors from a hospital in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, while the 2-stage abortion are overloading hospitals, killing mothers, it also has a psychological and emotional effect on healthcare personnel who develop split personalities. Because on the one hand, some patients need to heal and the life have to be saved, then suddenly at the request of a patient, they are expected to become cold-blooded and ruthlessly snuff out the life from another patient. Now that's when I say snuffing out the life of another patient, mean that is abortion. And the heinous ways it's being done, you can actually Google the procedures and how these innocent fetuses or babies are being killed within their mother's wombs. Now, this heinous act is in contradiction with the hypocritical oath pledged by medical staff. Now, in South Africa and countries where abortion is legalized, genocide is committed in the name of women's liberation. If I may quote from the Bible, where it says, "Woe to those who call evil good." And this is exactly what the South African government is guilty of when abortion and other evils like drugs and alcohol, pornography and gambling were legalized, hence tarnishing the integrity of our democracy. With the result that we have a generation that have lost its spiritual equilibrium. Now, for references, I'm just going to say that Dr. Frank Miller is a medical doctor, a pharmacologist and medicinal plant expert with extensive links to rural African hospitals. Now, how have the Muslim community in South Africa how have the Muslim community been affected by this particular termination of pregnancy bill? Well, I must say that there were a few voices that actually stood up, when this legislation was about to be legalized, and but not enough. There was not really a collective outcry by the Muslim community with regards to this particular legislation. And now we see the consequences thereof, because at a gender justice conference in 2009, the soul of this Muslim community in South Africa has been tarnished by the shocking statistics of 200,000 Muslim girls having terminated their unborn since legislation in 1997. Now, we have not really got fresh statistics from social development, but we do have eyewitness reports of really mothers or mothers in Islamic dress code have been seen accompanying their daughters at abortion clinics. As I'm also on radio, I also get feedback from the community and women actually asking for advice as well. Should or shouldn't they abort their babies? So we need really to conscientize really the community with this particular, I would say, really genocide that's happening within our community as well as our Muslim community. And also women actually in full hijab were also being seen using abortion clinics at state hospitals, and we really exclude those who are there for healing and not for harming or harming themselves and the baby. And also Muslim schoolgirls, amongst others, have been seen lining up for abortions at state hospitals. Because in South Africa, young girls don't need the permission of their parents to have an abortion done, but for any other operation, they need the parents' signature. So this is actually the evidence that Muslims have bought into the freedom that democracy has to offer. They actually freed themselves from the laws of Allah by living a life of convenience with no boundaries and responsibility. But we need to really be aware and to listen to what Allah is saying to us in the Holy Qu'ran, and what will our answer be as a Muslim community when the aborted child will ask the question, for what reason was I killed? So I also want to thank the ulama who have spoken out against it, and